Welcome to Mastering the Next, a cutting-edge podcast that explores the future of graduate, online, and non-traditional education through the lens of AI and technology. I'm your host, Dr. Ray Lutsky, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Element 451. Join me every 2 weeks for discussions with some of the thought leaders shaping the future of graduate enrollment management through technology. Mastering the Next is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform that helps institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Medical schools are making major changes in the way they recruit students, charge tuition, and engage with their current students through technology. The structure of medical school is also changing with themes such as earlier clinical experiences, interprofessional education, and an emphasis on case-based learning. With me is NAGAP Board member Tony Perez, Director of Student Recruitment and Enrollment Marketing at the Medical College of Wisconsin, to talk about medical education and developments in graduate health programs. Thanks for being here, Tony.
Of course, Ray. Thanks for having me.
So I want to start. You work at an innovative medical college with many unique graduate programs. What's next for graduate health education?
Well, a lot of emphasis, particularly on the medical MD side of things, has been on, as you alluded to, interprofessional education, which is really about ensuring that students going through medical school understand the roles of other healthcare providers, understand how best to work with them in order to provide the best patient care possible. With the structure that we have a very large medical school. In fact, we're one of the top 5 total enrollment-wise medical schools, private medical schools in the country. And so we have a very large student body of medical school students. And we also have a pharmacy school. We have also a Master's of Science in Anesthesia, which is kind of like a PA, but specifically in the anesthesia realm. And we'll soon be launching a PA program. So we have a lot of infrastructure and focus on health education, and we have all these students that are in their program, yes, but they're also taking the same classes with other students from other programs, which is kind of a unique piece. They're training in the same facilities. They're able to take advantage of the same technologies that assist with their learning. And so that's where a lot of our emphasis, at least, has been over the last few years. And as a matter of fact, our medical school recently rolled out a brand new curriculum just this academic year. Usually curriculums are revamped and revised every 10 to 12 years or so. And our curriculum that we rolled out really focused on early clinical exposure. We felt like that's a really great way to ensure that our students who are going through medical education, that early clinical exposure is really important, kind of serves as a way to kind of apply what they're learning through the coursework in the classroom in a very real, practical way earlier on, serves them well to ensure that they're being successful in future years.
And that makes a lot of sense given the need for clinicians to be experienced with working with patients and doing all the things that go beyond just learning about medicine. So I want to back up a bit. You mentioned pharmacy programs, and I can imagine that medical schools are seeing record application numbers. Tell me about what's going on with pharmacy programs. Are there challenges there that maybe you don't see in traditional medical school?
Well, certainly from an interest standpoint, we've seen a precipitous drop over the last, say, 3 to 5 years or so. And it's not necessarily us or our state or our region. It's really an industry-wide, country-wide issue. And I think it was exacerbated during the COVID-19 pandemic, where folks were burned out, they were overworked. A lot of pharmacists were turned to for more things than they typically do, and they were stretched a lot. unfortunately, the industry is suffering from some bad PR as well. We're seeing major retailers such as CVS and Walgreens see folks striking, walking out on the job. The outlook doesn't seem as rosy. That being said, I think our pharmacy school is doing a lot in terms of not only enhancing and getting creative with the ways in which we are trying to recruit students and market to them, but the ways in which we're trying to position pharmacy as an industry overall. I think there is a lot to be learned about the role of the pharmacist, which can vary from state to state depending on legislation. But a pharmacist, there's so many different ways in which they can impact health and so many different roles that they can take on that's beyond the more traditional retail pharmacy, right? A lot of pharmacists now work within health systems, are based within hospitals. Some are even based at advanced care facilities as well. Obviously, there's teaching opportunities there too for pharmacy schools. There's a lot of different professions that pharmacists can pursue. And so part of our challenge is not only recruiting and trying to enroll students from an ever-shrinking pie, trying to get the biggest piece of that, but we're also in a position where we need to be advocating for the pharmacy industry as a whole. So it's an interesting position to be in, but I think the ways in which we're currently approaching that at MCW, we've kind of built a village. We're bringing people in from different areas, people that have not worked previously together that are now understanding the need to come together to face this challenge head on. And I think we're doing some really good things. In fact, just got some good news. We actually surpassed the amount of deposits last year, this year already. So it's not a huge amount, but it's certainly progress in the right direction.
Well, congratulations. That's exciting. And certainly a challenge given what you just said about the PR problem of the pharmacist industry, if you will. And so I'm curious, given that, and given the fact that you work with lots of other programs, where are you seeing growth? Where are you seeing opportunities for new kinds of graduate programs taking off that you're working with right now?
Well, one of the reasons why we are positioning ourselves to launch a PA is because we're seeing a greater need not only to train PAs, but to have them in health settings. You may be familiar with the physician shortage that was anticipated some years ago, and medical schools responded to that coming physician shortage by increasing the amount of students that they enroll. And that's fine. That's certainly one way to do that. But we're now seeing challenges, though, with residency placement. So once a medical student graduates with their MD degree, they're not done. They have to go into a residency training. So residency is it's paid training essentially, right? And depending on the specialty, that residency can be a year or two. I would say is usually the average 2 years, as many as 5 potentially, depending on the specialty. Some of the more advanced, if you will, specialties, anesthesiology is an example of this. There's just a lot more to it, and there's a lot more that folks need to ensure that they're good to go before they're kind of set free and as a full-fledged physician. And so the residency placements have not followed that increase. And so we're seeing a decrease in the match rate. The match rate is the amount of students that graduate from a medical school placed in the residency. We're seeing a decline nationwide because health networks have been slow to accommodate the increased need for that. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, which I don't think we have time to get into. But going back to opportunity, that's why we're seeing new PA programs being launched. It's one of the reasons why we have a Master's of Science in Anesthesia program. Health systems are relying on these individuals and these roles more often because of the physician shortage and just the need to ensure that as the population is growing and as populations get more dense and even disparate depending on the regions, right? Some more rural, underrepresented areas aren't as robust in the amount of healthcare providers that they have. And so we're seeing the need to bring more professionals in and provide more opportunities to get these folks trained so that they can be working to improve health.
It's interesting because it sounds like there's a really strong connection between what's happening in industry and all the programs you're working with, that there's some interdependency about what capacity is for residencies, how folks feel about pharmacy education. And I imagine technology and things like AI are starting to influence that. But I understand you have a biostatistics program as well. Can you help us understand a little bit about how that's going, where that's going, what role that's playing in sort of the future of what you're doing in health education at the graduate level?
Yeah, so we have a PhD in biostatistics that has been in place for about 15 years now, I'd say. And most recently, we launched a master's level biostatistics and data science program. This is a very niche area within health and healthcare, but a very critical and important one. So if you think about all the different health research that's done broadly, whether it be biomedical based, whether it be population health related, there's data behind everything that we do. And oftentimes we rely on folks outside of a research group to help us understand that data and make sense of it, and then to action, like to put it into action, right? And so that's where professionals such as like bioinformaticists, biostatisticians come in. They work with research groups, primarily PIs on National Institutes of Health grants or National Science Foundation grants, who are doing this work and complementing their work and advancing it in ways that we haven't been able to do before, because it was an area that I think we were kind of missing. Maybe I shouldn't say missing. It's an area that it just flies under the radar because they don't get a lot of the praise and attention that more frontline folks get. If you think about all the different treatments that are used, all the different therapies, even the prescription drugs that are used to improve health, those all came from some place that did research on how best to improve health with this population of folks at this particular point in their treatment. That was all done. And that started with bench research. That started with folks working with community organizations to understand their needs and to meet them where they're at. And biostatisticians have really helped drive forward the ways in which we can advance those research discoveries and get them in clinical trials and ultimately get them into existence.
So it sounds like it's a real sea change in terms of understanding how to use data, how data is predictive of a lot of needs. And I can imagine it probably comes back to the idea that a lot of industry is driving health sciences education, that there is sort of this demand in one place or another for new kinds of practitioners in key areas to adapt to the needs of the population. So I'm just curious, sort of our last question here, use your crystal ball, if you have one for us, and help us understand, where you see graduate health education going. Do you see certain programs shrinking? Do you see certain programs growing and becoming more popular? Where do you think things are going?
Well, we'll always need healthcare in some way, shape, or form. So I only imagine health-related programs growing. Now, the need for some of these programs will certainly vary, right, from industry to industry. I know we're kind of in a rut right now, as I alluded to earlier with pharmacy, but I don't anticipate that lasting. In fact, there have been dips in the past in terms of interest in pharmacy education, and it bounced back. And I can share, at least within the state of Wisconsin, there's a lot of legislation on the table to further expand the role of the pharmacist, to take on some more of those primary care roles that a family physician would typically take on. And that, again, goes back to that point about how we're seeing a reduction in health practitioners right now and clinician decline. And so that's one of the ways that states and institutions are getting creative about, again, maintaining that quality of healthcare and providing that quality of healthcare, but just using different ways to do so. I mentioned our Master's of Science in Anesthesia. That's a very niche program that currently, I believe there's only somewhere in the low teens, somewhere between 13 and 15 states that not only have the programs, but legally allow the position to even exist. Right now, they're mostly centered within the Midwest and the Southeast region, but I anticipate that growing over time. It's becoming, I would say, almost as popular as PA from a skill standpoint. And I anticipate that certainly growing. And I also anticipate the emphasis on interprofessional education to continue, especially as we introduce more, again, niche roles like our MSA students into healthcare, and further diversify just the profession of health and healthcare, because it's going to be really important for these individuals to know how best to work with one another, what their roles are, and to position folks in the best possible way to address the ever-increasing healthcare needs of our population, both state-based, regionally, and across the country. So those are the things that I anticipate. And I also see healthcare just as, in general, healthcare education, interest growing. And I think it's incumbent upon folks like me to continue driving home the value of what these programs are, what it is that they offer. Because oftentimes I find I'll meet with prospective students who are interested in, say, medical school, but don't realize that there are careers that can be made out of doing health research, for example, or even have heard of a Master's of Science in Anesthesia program. So it's also about, it's not just direct recruiting, it's also informing and providing awareness about these different opportunities. Genetic counseling, I didn't mention that. I'd be remiss. I'm glad that I remember that. That's another area that is growing in need and in popularity, and it's a very important, again, forward-facing, patient interaction-based program that's health-focused, that only requires 2 years of a master's degree to be able to do things like that. And so I think it's just important for us to continue building awareness and to opening those avenues up for people to pursue them who have an interest in pursuing them.
I think there's so much more, but I think that's the place we'll leave this conversation. And I really appreciate you sharing. Tony Perez, Director of Student Recruitment and Enrollment Marketing at Medical College of Wisconsin. Thanks for joining us.
It was a pleasure, Ray. Thank you.
The Mastering the Next podcast is a part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Artis Cadieux, J.C. Bonilla, Mallory Wilsey, Brendan Henkel, Brian Gross, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.